All right. Sanjay's plan to get America back on the road. All right. We're living in a world of risk right now, and we need to get to a world of safety. So that doesn't mean we're going to stamp out every virus. That doesn't mean that we won't face a virus like this in the future, but there are certain things that we have to do to get there. So, all right. So, first thing we need to do is assess prevalence. That means how much of the virus is where. We need to have free testing on demand. Okay, right now to get a antibody test to figure out whether you had the virus or not is upwards of $120. It's really only reliably available from um, one lab, Quest. There's others, but they're not reliable. We need to be able to provide serial detection and antibody testing also on demand. That means if you're positive, if you're negative today, 2 weeks from now, as a result of where you work or your risk level, you should be able to get tested again. Just because you test negative doesn't mean that you are, the risk is eliminated. It just means that you've not been exposed yet. When you do get exposed, then rigorous contact tracing is required. Now, if it's not going to be offered at the federal level, we're going to have to do it at the community level. That means either at the county, township, or even the state would be great, where we gather data and find out. We don't have to share names. We don't have to share our personal information. We don't even have to share how much information we normally share on Facebook or Instagram. We just have to share whether we've been tested, and if we are tested positive, certain circumstances that may have led to us testing positive at the community level. And then I don't know if we can rely on strict quarantine, self-quarantine of the positives, but ultimately we're going to have to move to a model that only quarantines positive cases. All of us sitting home alone is not going to make this thing go away. We've got to reinvigorate everything in our lives to be truly, healthy and back to normal, all of us. But part of the process is getting tested, having the availability of tests, and then quarantining those that test positive, and then obviously figuring out where they got it or how they got it. Healthcare access. Everybody who tests positive for COVID and falls sick should be allowed to go to the hospital if needed, or secure at-home medication for free. I don't know how we're going to do that, but it's a must. This is a national challenge. This is not something that we leave out or leave behind anyone, because if we do, guess what's going to happen? Everyone else is going to continue to suffer. So either we take care of everybody or we're all going to suffer. If you get sick and you recover, a certain period of convalescence, I would say about 6 weeks, is necessary as a national mandate for you to receive paid convalescence. That means please don't go to work, and please, even if you've recovered, know that you may be shedding live virus for up to 21 days. And we have evidence of that, and therefore you need to stay home and away from other people even after you get better. Data and analytics, which is my world. Obviously, people have to be able to submit anonymized data. We need at the population health level to assess it and then make recommendations, on a daily basis on granular data. We need to be able to point to a neighborhood and say, look, you've got 3 positive cases and you've got 1 kid in the neighborhood next to you that's suffering Kawasaki-like syndrome. Here's what we're going to do about it. Okay. You can't just wait for these things to show up on hospital doorsteps like we did the first 6 weeks. And then we have to figure out more about the genomics of this thing and halt any further inbound strains that may be non-native right now to the United States, strains that may be circulating that could eventually reinfect or cause a resurgence of COVID in the United States. We need to test international travel. So anyone and everyone crossing the border needs to be tested. And then track the strains that are arriving. Any questions?
I guess my only question is, how are we ever going to get the powers that be to get behind this?
Hey, man, I just work here. This is again, I can give you the best science and that's it. That's all I can do. It's up to the rest. I mean, all of us together collectively writing to. I have a friend on Facebook here I've been communicating with who's a data guy in Las Vegas and manages properties there. He's writing to Congress people and yeah, that is Karen's job. Exactly. Collective action. Karen, you're on it. You're assigned. We'll get Amanda to help you. So that's really about it. Everybody's got a role in this. I know what my role is. And I will continue to do this. I've done this, did this for Ed Rendell when he was governor of Pennsylvania. I've worked on, John knows, I worked with our local representative, Ed Pashinsky, on a healthcare reform task force. Put together recommendations that eventually went up the chain to the federal level that became part of Obamacare. So on the data and electronic record side of things and population health. So my voice is a science voice, at least here. This is it. This is how we fix this. This is how we go from facing a risk on every day we walk out the door or go to work. Unless we do these things, we will not get to safety. I mean, fight me if you want to. This is science. This is it. This is what I do. This is what I know. And unless we do this, we will not get to safety.
I can tell you that every state almost has some sort of grassroots collective action network, and I would recommend that people find theirs and get plugged into it. My nonprofit is part of People's Action, and it's a matter of collective action. You have to be with other people making the demands. It's much harder when you stand alone and make the demands. You have to get with other people and do it.
The person who's producing this video right now knows that better than anyone. He's been doing it for probably 2 decades. John is, I'm very proud to call myself John's friend, and I've watched him do amazing things with collective action.
Yeah, it's 2 decades. I started when I was 5.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
We're going to go with that. I got a clippers and I cut all the gray out so no one will know.
So I thought that I talked too much this time. I really felt I talked too much, but I hope I got enough information out to you. I'd really love to hear questions if anyone's still interested in asking. I'm here.
I guess I have a question.
Yes.
So it's the most annoying thing that I've seen on Facebook, all the people demanding haircuts.
Yes.
Is there any kind of data point where at this level in the community, when the percentage is this, that it's safer for that level of contact to go back to work? Has anyone determined that?
No, no, and that's a great question. But the only thing that we've got as a proxy is like the first slide, John, do you remember if you could bring up the first slide on Italy? Italy has had, I think, a 20-day decline continuously. That's just incredible, considering what they were facing 20 days ago. If you see that in your community, then you're trending towards a place of greater safety, right? But then if you have an influx of people from outside your community constantly, again, the R effective is going to change dramatically as those places open up and service people outside your community. If your community is very much insular and that, has dropped consecutively for 15, 25, 20 days, you're going to have a level of safety that's, on a lower level of risk. I have Lauren asking, I have an antibody test scheduled at Quest this week, although I have no particular reason to suspect I had COVID. What is the potential effectiveness utility of the results? Do we know enough to make the results actionable at this time? Beautiful question. Beautiful question. Okay. So here's the answer. We know from previous studies that having a SARS infection and a MERS infection, which is essentially the same class of Baltimore 4 class of a virus, confers 2 to 3 years of protection. After that, the neutralizing antibody levels are seen to drop. Now, that's very different than getting your measles, mumps, and rubella or poliovax in youth, and then you have kind of this long sustained protection throughout your life. I can't really get into why this is different for different infectious agents, but what Mike Null, my classmate and friend, childhood friend who couldn't join us today, but has been joining us on a weekly basis, he also got tested. Last week he tested, and because he had suspicion, he had almost a 2-week-long cough and malaise and whatever, and in February. So he got tested this week, and it came back negative. Okay, so he lives in a ski town. He thought he may have come across clients that came from outside. He lives in Utah, and they came in, maybe they mixed and mingled, and he got sick. And travelers very early, pre-SARS testing, pre-SARS awareness, he got it, and he thought he recovered, but he's negative. Now, you tested. You're going to get tested and want to know what is the effectiveness. The effectiveness is for the next 2 years, if you are positive, which doesn't seem that you have a reason to suspect that you had it or should be positive. But if you were, like Mike, if you had that reason and he came back positive, it's a relative amount of protection. Now, when I say relative amount of protection, I mean almost equivalent to a vaccination. A vaccine is tested to provide protection 80 to 90% of the time that you're exposed to the infectious agent. If you recovered from SARS, I would say there's a greater than 90% chance that you will not suffer from SARS again in this season, and you probably are immune to it for the next minimum 2 years, if not longer. Then, again, I don't have evidence for this, but this is comparing it closely to viruses that are extremely similar, like MERS and SARS-1. That's the answer there. What I do not recommend is testing your new superpowers. So if you do if you do test positive, don't go licking hospital doorknobs and going, hurrah. Okay, so, right? Okay.